Ever catch yourself staring at your bank statement and kind of wonder, like, what even is money? It's this thing we all agree on, but it feels kind of shaky sometimes.
Well, today we're going deep, like really deep into the history of money to see how we got to this point.
Yeah, it's wild when you start digging into it.
Totally. So we've got this academic paper, right, all about money. And based on the notes you guys sent over, this deep dive is going to be right up your alley. We're going to unpack how we went from this gold standard thing to, well, whatever this is, fiat currency, right?
Exactly. And I think to really grasp something like Bitcoin, which I know a lot of you are interested in, we got to rewind back to when money was linked to something physical, something real, like gold.
Right, the gold standard, like everyone's grandparents are always going on about. So how'd that whole system actually work? And more importantly, what made it go kaput? Picture this. It's a world still recovering from a massive war, desperate for some stability. That's the scene for the Bretton Woods Agreement back in 1944. Basically, they made the US dollar the leading man, pegged to gold at a fixed rate, and other countries linked their currencies to the dollar. The whole point was to, like, stop the financial roller coaster and get global trade booming again.
So the dollar was the cool kid. Everyone wanted to sit at its lunch table because it had that gold glow, right? But here's where I always get tripped up. What if the US just printed way more dollars than they had gold? That's got to be playing with fire, right?
You hit the nail on the head. That's the Achilles heel of this whole setup. It all hinges on trust. Quest that whoever's holding the golden ticket, in this case the US, won't just print their way into trouble. And, well, you can probably guess what happened next.
Oh, I'm ready for the drama. When did things start to go south for this golden system? Spill the tea.
Fast forward to the late 60s. The U.S. is knee-deep in Vietnam War expenses, plus those ambitious social programs. So what do? Start printing more dollars.
More dollars, less gold to back them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not math I want to do. Did other countries just, like, watch this happen?
Let's just say some started getting a little suspicious, and rightfully so. France, for example, they weren't afraid to throw some shade, got worried about the dollar's stability, and started asking for their gold back. Imagine a bank run, but on a global scale, not pretty.
Intense. So what did the U.S. do? Did they just, like, ditch the gold standard altogether?
Pretty much. With their gold reserves shrinking and the pressure mounting, President Nixon made a big move in '71, a real plot twist. He said, "We're done with gold." Just like that, the dollar was no longer tied to gold, ending Bretton Woods and kicking off the era of what we call fiat currency.
Hold up. So they just changed the rules. No more gold. Just
Yeah.
trust us. Seriously.
You got it. That's fiat currency in a nutshell. It's all about faith in the government and everyone else going along with it. But, and this is a big but, what happens when that trust takes a nosedive? If money's just an idea, what's stopping it from, well, becoming worthless?
That's what keeps me up at night.
It's the million-dollar question, or maybe the constantly shrinking dollar question. Because here's the kicker with fiat currency. When you take away something real backing it, like gold, it opens the door to this thing called inflation. And that's where things get really interesting. And by interesting, I mean potentially scary for our wallets.
Inflation, right. It's like that slow hiss when you get a nail in your tire. You know it's there, slowly draining things, making everything pricier. But what's really going on, and why should we actually care?
You've got that feeling of things slipping away. That's inflation for you. That this sneaky tax silently chipping away at what our money can actually buy. And get this, the paper uses this phrase, accumulated inflation. Kind of ominous, right? Accumulated inflation sounds like a chapter title in an economics textbook from hell. But seriously, what's the big deal with this term? Why should we care? Okay, so it's not just about your groceries costing more this year. It's about how the value of, like, every dollar in your pocket is constantly shrinking. It buys a little less today than it did yesterday and way less than, say, 10 years ago. It's about how much your money's actually worth over time.
Ouch. Okay, hit me with an example, something to really drive this home. What's this paper say?
Brace yourself. It says the U.S. dollar has lost something like 97%, 98% of its value since way back in 1913. Basically, a dollar back then is like having just a few pennies today. Wild, right?
Oh, wow, that's nuts. It really makes you think. But here's the thing. If inflation is this constant thing, this drain, how come some people seem to be doing just fine, even getting richer, while others are barely scraping by? Is it all just about, like, working harder, being smarter with money, or is there something else going on?
That's a question a lot of folks are asking. And actually, this paper dives right into that with something called the Cantillon effect.
The Cantillon. Okay, never heard of it. What is this effect and what's it got to do with inflation and, some people having yachts while others are clipping coupons?
Right, so the Cantillon effect is basically saying that when new money gets printed, like when central banks do their thing, it doesn't just magically spread out evenly like rain falling on everyone equally.
Yeah.
Nope. Those closest to the money faucet, think banks, big-time investors, they get the first dibs. They use this, let's call it cheaper money, to buy up assets like real estate, stocks, all that jazz, before inflation really hits.
Ah, so it's like a game of hot potato, but with trillions of dollars instead. And those furthest away get burned.
Exactly. As this new money trickles down, demand goes up, and suddenly your groceries, your gas, it all costs more.
Right.
By the time most people see an extra buck or two in their paycheck, inflation's already eaten it up. So yeah, it can make wealth inequality even worse. Those with assets, they're sitting pretty. Those without, they're stuck watching their buying power shrink.
Makes sense. So if most of what you've got is cash or you're on a fixed income, inflation isn't just some abstract thing, it's a real threat. So we've talked about ditching the gold standard, this whole inflation thing that feels like a never-ending uphill battle. It makes you wonder, is there another way? Which brings us to the big question, the one I know a lot of you are dying to hear about, is Bitcoin, this whole crypto thing, the answer. Could it be the life raft in our crazy financial ocean?
Yeah, Bitcoin's definitely got people talking, and for good reason. It promises things that, let's be real, traditional money just can't.
Okay, so unpack that for us. The paper you sent over lays out some compelling arguments for Bitcoin, especially after everything we've just talked about. What are the big selling points that make people say, this is the future of money?
One of the coolest things about Bitcoin is its fixed supply. Unlike our current system, where governments can basically print money forever, Bitcoin has a hard limit. Only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. That's it. It's programmed into its DNA, can't change it.
So no more worrying about governments going on a money printing spree. No wonder people who are worried about inflation are into that.
Exactly. That limited supply, it's like a built-in inflation buster. As more people want Bitcoin, and that supply stays the same, in theory, its value should go up. Total opposite of our current system where things just keep getting more expensive.
Digital scarcity, huh? It's a trip. But there's more to Bitcoin than just that limited supply, right? There's this whole other layer of decentralization that people are always going on about.
Right. Decentralization is huge. Think about it. Regular currencies. It's the central banks and governments calling the shots. Bitcoin is run on this decentralized network, like a whole bunch of computers all connected. No one person, no single institution can just waltz in and manipulate it.
So a government couldn't just shut Bitcoin down if they wanted to. Couldn't just create more to mess with the supply. That's wild.
Exactly. And that's a big part of the appeal, right? It's like a shield against government overreach, economic uncertainty, all of that. It puts the power back in the hands of regular people.
Sounds pretty utopian. But come on, there's got to be a catch, some kind of downside, right? What does the paper say about the potential risks or challenges with Bitcoin?
You're right to be a little skeptical. There are always challenges. One of the biggest ones people talk about is volatility. Bitcoin's price, it's known to swing up and down like crazy, which, yeah, makes it a bit of a gamble, at least in the short term.
Yeah, that's what I always hear, those crazy price swings. Roller coaster ride, for sure. What other challenges does this paper point out?
Well, here's the irony. The very thing that makes Bitcoin attractive, that whole decentralized thing, it's also a challenge in itself. Governments, they're used to being in control, especially when it comes to money. So something they can't really regulate or control, they're not exactly thrilled about it.
Ah, so we could see some regulatory showdowns, governments trying to put a leash on this decentralized maverick.
It's definitely possible. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, right? As the paper points out, Bitcoin forces us to really think about what money even is, about who has the power in this digital age, how this all plays out, this tension between decentralization and control. It's going to be a big part of shaping the future of finance.
It's like a clash of titans. Wow. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive, from the good old days of the gold standard to this whole new world of Bitcoin. As we wrap up here, what are the key things you hope listeners will take away from all of this?
Honestly, I just hope this gets people thinking, spark some curiosity about money and how it all works. Even if you're not rushing out to buy Bitcoin after this, just understanding these concepts, it's crucial for navigating the financial world today, which, let's be honest, can feel like a maze sometimes.
It's about so much more than just dollars and cents, right? It's about power, control, what we even consider valuable. And we've really just scratched the surface here. For those of you who want to dig even deeper, we'll be sure to link that academic paper in the show notes. It's a gold mine, no pun intended.
And keep the conversation going. Head over to our social media. Let us know what you think about the future of money, any crazy predictions. You never know. We might just feature your comments on a future episode.
Until then, stay curious, folks. The future of money is being written right now.